Talk to me a little bit about the necessity for that type of face-to-face marketing.
Really, I felt like maybe it was a desire to be seen. I want to be seen. I want to be recognized as, like the typical MLM thing where you got to recruit the planet and every conversation you have, you're trying to make a sale. I don't want to.
So you have to move or die, kind of. I mean,
what do you mean?
I mean, you have to continue to innovate and come up with the next thing. Like you were talking about LinkedIn, how you want to dominate and take over and figure out the same thing you did with YouTube. You feel compelled to keep.
I feel compelled because it's not just about providing a service. There's a lot of videographers out there that are just on call. They're freelance videographers. And you call them up and you say, hey, I'm going to be speaking at the Grand America Hotel. There's going to be a big crowd. I want footage of me on the stage. Or, hey, I've got a course. Can you help me? So the client dictates what you film. But that's not what I create. I didn't just want to create a service and compete with other videographers. I wanted to create a result. So I used this strategy on YouTube to help my clients generate leads for their business. And as YouTube changes, then we change. And if LinkedIn, or if YouTube disappears and LinkedIn's the next hot thing, that's my goal, is to continue to innovate all those things. And there's always going to be new stuff. I mean, on YouTube itself, we have YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts have really became official last March. And it's like, all right, is that going to help our strategy or is it not? Should we spend a lot of time here? So we're doing testing and tweaking, and results are kind of thin right now. But yeah.
You don't really market, do you?
Once I finish my book, I plan to, and I see value in marketing, but I haven't.
And it's because your hand hasn't been forced, essentially, or are you just I'll only do things through referrals? Or
Referrals are so nice,
yeah.
And I get referrals weekly.
So you kind of you sort of lay low. You're a little under the radar. I mean, I think when people ask you what do you do for a living, how do they understand it right away? I mean, it's a fairly complicated.
I won't mention his name, but a friend of mine he's in the video production space, YouTube space. We were just having a chat digitally, and we've been friends for years. But he said to me when he found out that we were getting the place in Florida, and he kind of asked some follow-up questions, and he said, "Oh, I didn't realize the scale that you were operating at," something like that. And it's. I guess it's true. I mean,
yeah. Well, yeah. If you say I work in video production, I mean, what comes to mind?
What does that mean?
What is that? Yeah. Well, we've got the local car dealerships. We do some commercials.
So I try and say things not to brag, but to let people know what I do. It's like, yeah, I've got clients that what I've done on YouTube now it brings them in 7 figures monthly on their channel. I mean, I'll let them know, like, look, some of my clients are bringing in $1 million a month just because of what I've done, but still people have a hard time understanding.
You talked earlier a little bit about, and speaking of marketing, there's ways to kind of market yourself, of course, especially as a sole proprietor, maybe where you don't have a team of 10 or 20 or 30 or even outsourcing. You have to keep hoofing it, don't you? You got to keep out there. You talked about networking and being out at conventions and shows or at meetings and other places. I see some of your occasional social media posts where you're at a show or you're at a YouTube influencers event. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about the necessity for that type of face-to-face marketing.
It's kind of shifted a little bit.
Has it?
I used to go to anything and everything because I felt like maybe it was a desire to be seen. I want to be seen. I want to be recognized as the YouTube authority or whatnot. I still have that desire, I guess, but I've had to soften on that. In fact, recently there have been 2 YouTube events. One called Vid Summit, which 2-3 years ago I was a speaker. Okay. They had me come and speak.
I think I remember that.
Well, how much more successful am I today than I was 2-3 years ago? I'm way more successful, right. And I've got much bigger case studies I can share, much more knowledge I can share, but they didn't invite me to speak this year. And when I was at that event, I felt unseen. It was like an emotional experience for me. I reflect on it like very childish. I wanted to be seen and recognized for my accomplishments. But then, a couple weeks later, I spoke at another event, Video Marketing World, that was in Dallas. And I did get to take the stage, and I was seen.
And I would say maybe where you're at now because business is hopping, you don't feel as compelled to be out there, be seen, to raise your awareness among clientele. But for those maybe that are just starting in their world, maybe they do need to kind of follow that pattern. You know what I mean? Like accept speaking gigs. And
I guess the lesson that I've learned is had to look like, am I going from my own like gratification, like so that I could be popular or get the pat on the back, or is this really going to be fruitful for my business? There's another event, a part of the National Speakers Association Winter Conference. Instead of just going to that event, I'm actually looking at being an exhibitor, and I'll bring a team member with me that can man the booth, so that we can actually like have conversations where it's, like the typical MLM thing where you got to recruit the planet, and every conversation you have, you're trying to make a sale. I don't want to do that. I don't want to. But if I'm an exhibitor, I've got a booth, and I can, have a way to promote my services. I think that's going to be a lot more fruitful than me just attending.
Now, having kind of been raised in the world of trade shows and conferences, I understand that whole dynamic. And really, in many cases, it's your absence speaks more than your presence. Like, depending on the industry and the players, like if you want to be taken seriously, you have to be at this show, even if you're just in a 10 by 10 with pipe and drape and your own little printed sign, you know what I mean? Like, they have to know that you care enough to be there. But by the same token, to open up a conversation with speakers, that's where you started, as I recall. You actually did you would charge people $300 or whatever to film them doing their speech.
I did a lot of those.
Or not even film. Listen to me,
we say film.
Yeah. But nowadays it's so antiquated. It's quaint. That's what it is. Was your debt ruined? Were you able to maintain even though you had a lot of debt?
Debt is not something that you want to play with, or mess around with. If it's not something that you've done before, like what if you can't pay that back? You're in a worse off position.